Welcome to Battle Rankings Podcast. I'm Svetlana Bizet, and joined with me today is Jace Pippin. How
Hey
are you
everyone,
today, Jace?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I got all my schoolwork done that I had to unfortunately reschedule with you for.
Yep, fair. Mine will start in a week. So
Oh, that's exciting. That's
yeah.
exciting. How will that impact you being able to go to all your tournaments and stuff?
It usually doesn't impact that too bad. I just have to plan ahead so that I can take a full day off of doing assignments. But most of our assignments are due Friday nights, so the weekend's usually the best time for me to have free time.
See, that all my assignments are always due Sunday. So I run into this awkward I can have a weekend, but I have to have everything done by Friday, or I'm working all weekend on schoolwork.
Yeah, tough choices.
Always tough choices. All right. So what first got you interested into Team Yankee and Flames of War?
So, uh, when I was in mostly middle school and high school, which was for a lot of you guys a long time ago, for me, not that long ago.
it, I mean, it probably wasn't that long ago for me either, compared to
Yeah,
some people.
yeah. Um, I was really into history. I like to read. I like to read history books. I read a lot of books. We'll leave it there. There was a lot of books that got read. Um, I liked making dioramas. I like stuff like that. So I eventually just stumbled across like the models for the game without actually looking for the game, just online. And I was like, oh, well, these look cool. I wonder if I could like use these for something. So I found a store nearby that sold them, and I went down. I was 15, and I went down to the store to go look at buying some. And I was like, oh, I could just get a starter set. It seems pretty good price. Lots of things in it. And as I'm there in the store looking at it, the guy who runs our local group is in the store at the same time and convinces me to buy the starter set. And he's like, did you know there's a game you play with this? And I was like, no, I just wanted the models just to like, I was just going to like paint them up. I don't even know what I was going to do with them really. But he's like, yeah, there's a game you play with them. He's like, do you want to try it? And I was like, yes, I love games. So uh, he got me a practice game, and 2 to 3 weeks later, I was at my first tournament.
Oh, wow, that's fast.
Yeah.
So how long have you been playing then?
So I started Flames in 2015 when I was 15 turning 16. Started right at the beginning, around January, February.
Okay.
And then I picked up Team Yankee around 2018, a couple of years after it came out, just when they had expanded to a couple different countries by that point.
Okay, that's fun. What is your favorite army to play then? Since you've been playing for such a long time, I'm assuming you have amassed a game room.
Yes, there is a lot. I have lots of different Flames armies. Um, my favorite armies kind of changed like every like couple years. Right now, it's been Americans. Loved playing Americans. But before that, it was Soviets. I played Soviets for like good 3 years straight, where I didn't play anything else. But now I'll like switch it up every tournament. I try to bring a different army just to keep it fresh.
I feel
Uh,
like that's common among players. That they have their like base army that they like kind of like playing at the moment, but
yeah,
it changes depending on what the rules favor most, or like the tournament situation.
yeah, and I really enjoy the list building part of the game too, right? So I like to come up with different ideas, different things that I think would be interesting or cool to try them out. Um, but yeah, and that's just how I like to play. I know some people who play other games. Like one of my buddies who I play a different game with, he's played with his same list 140 times in a row.
Oh wow.
I couldn't do it. I play a tournament and I'm like, I'm bored of this list now. I need something
I
new.
I don't do a whole lot of tournaments, but when I do tournaments, I usually have either I'll come up with the list because I usually do a new list every time, unless I like really find something I really like, and then I'll have John proof it so that if I need to like make a quick switch here or there, I can get that done. But then I'll like play it that one time, and then I'll be like, okay, so this worked for me and this didn't. and then I'll like make changes based upon that, and it's a different list every time then.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I just do what I think is fun.
Yeah, I go with that one. I'm like, oh, this looks cool, and maybe not the greatest, but we'll see how it goes.
Might not be the best list, but it's my list.
Yeah, exactly. I also like playing the different things too, because no one can ever expect what I bring, right? There's certain guys that I'm like, oh, I know you're going to bring a variation of this, whereas I show up, everyone's like, you brought this today? I'm like, oh, you're completely wrong.
Okay, so you played a lot of tournaments. This past June, you went to Masters. How many times have you gone to Masters before?
Yeah, so I've gone to Flames of War Masters twice. I've been invited 3 times, but one of the times I couldn't go because they wouldn't let us Canadians come down to you guys' country for some reason, you know?
That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
really didn't understand it, but been there twice, and then this was my first time coming to Team Yankee Masters.
Okay. What were your experiences there?
Yeah, so
your previous experiences, not this most recent tournament.
Yeah, my previous ones were good. My first one I did all right. I think I ended up somewhere around 11th or 12th. The second one was where I did really well. I ended up coming second in my second one. So, but
that's impressive. That's nice. So were you expecting a Masters invitation this year, or was you like, I'm happy if I get it. I understand if I don't. What was your reaction?
So I keep pretty good track of where I'm standing for the Flames Masters. I was not paying attention to the Team Yankee rankings at all. So the email came and I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. I was like, I should see what I'm doing in June. So it was a surprise. I was not really expecting it, mostly just because I hadn't looked at the rankings for a while. But
okay.
I also had to look back and be like, which Team Yankee tournaments did I even play this year?
Okay. So let me look my questions really quick. So what were your expectations for this year's tournament once they announced the rules and the Mcguffin Rules?
Yeah, so being Team Yankee, I've also played Team Yankee a lot less than Flames. So I was holding myself to nowhere near the same expectations as I have previously and probably will for continuing Flames Masters. So it was pretty low. I was kind of like, you know what? Middle of the pack's pretty good. Like top half would be great. That's the goal. Top half, win half the games, right? Just like keep it average.
Okay. That's fair. And then with the Mcguffin Rules, what did you think of that? How did it impact your list building, your strategy? Like what were you even expecting with that? Like
so
specifically the fun Mcguffin Rule, the thing that threw everyone for a loop.
So that was interesting. Actually, the biggest thing I was considering was not the Mcguffin Rule. It was the 1 infantry unit rule was the thing that I had to consider the most, because the 2 armies that I own and play, I need 2 infantry units to run.
Oh.
And to even get to the points level of 120 points, which meant I ended up showing up with an army. I have never played in a tournament before. I didn't own a single model in my army, so I borrowed every single model that I brought with me.
Okay.
So it was interesting. And then I also had to find an army that I or someone around me owned the biggest tanks from that nation, because they were a requirement.
And not everyone wants to go out and buy the biggest tanks.
Yeah, actually, a lot of our guys do. The problem was most of the most recent ones that came out, so the ones I wanted, which were namely the T-72Bs, they hadn't hit Canada yet.
Oh, okay.
They actually only hit Canada the Tuesday before Masters, so I wasn't able to take the list I was originally planning to take.
So the delay is even worse than the American delay.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I wouldn't even think of that. I was thinking you'd be like on about the same time schedule as us. Since,
no, we're usually slightly behind.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what list did you bring?
So I originally was wanting to bring Czechs, and I was going to bring Czechs, either a bunch of T-72Bs or just a bunch of T-72s with some T-72Bs. with no T-72Bs showing up, I swapped to the nation that's biggest tank is T-72s, so that I could just take more regular T-72Ms, and that was Iraqis.
Okay. And how did that work out for you with having your McGuffin unit the same as the rest of your units? I know several other players had some sort of combination of that situation.
So mine was nice. So the way it had worked out and just the way the points in the army and what I wanted to take worked out, I was able to take one larger unit of tanks than the other two. So I made that one the McGuffin unit just to make it tougher to kill, right? You got to kill more tanks before you even start forcing me to check.
Yeah.
It's easier to run it around, run it and hide, right? Yeah, I can lose one tank and not feel as bad about it. But yeah, it was nice because I was able to take larger tanks. I also didn't feel like, though, I had something that was a super big point sink for my MacGuffin. So I was like, there were a couple games where I looked at other person's MacGuffins and I'm like, I have certain ways I can get rid of this. And I would use my MacGuffin to get rid of theirs, knowing I would lose it just for the straight trade-off.
Okay.
Because it's a T-72M unit, I mean, most anything can kill it. And any other MacGuffin unit can kill mine very easily.
Okay. So how did you study for Masters? Like, was it just like a lot of practice games and tournaments? I know we have some older videos of different gameplay from Masters before and different things covering previous Masters. Knowing that you might run into somebody like Chris Jackson or Brian Coaches or some of these repeat players that you just know that they're going to show up. How did you prepare?
So most of those guys who actually do show up, like those big names, I have played multiple times before. So I'm pretty experienced to what I kind of need to do, and I've got an idea of how they like to play. For my own practice, I did a lot less for this one than I normally get to, mostly just because I had schooling going on up until and during the trip. So most of my studying was actually just theory crafting, building lists. I think there was about a 2-week span where I built a different list every day and then made 2 to 3 revisions of that list every day. The week before, I did manage to get 2 practice games in. So I did have some idea of how my list was going to do. But it was definitely a lot less I would like to do, and definitely a lot less since it was my first time playing Iraqis and my first time playing a Warsaw Pack army.
So so you had quite a bit of a flight, right? You're coming from Canada. How much space did those armies take up just to like get them to Indiana? That's crazy.
2 army bags.
Oh, okay.
I had to bring a second person with me to allow the second carry-on so that we can put them both in the overhead.
This is a carry-on.
Yep.
Well, at least you had a travel buddy for all of the layover time.
Yeah, that was nice. The layovers weren't too bad. There was only 1 each way, so the flights weren't as bad as they could have been. But.
Okay, so how did your actual play go with your Iraqi list?
So I was actually fairly happy with how it went. It worked out mostly how I expected it to. The tanks killed a lot of things with a lot of shots. A lot of BMP missiles killed a lot of things with a lot of my goal was just throw enough dice and you'll kill things, right? And it worked pretty well for most games. There were a couple that I had that came down really close, and it came down to about just a 50-50 swing right near the end, and I ended up losing each one of those, which was a little disappointing. But overall, it did what I expected, which was all I could have really asked for.
Okay. Who did you play during it? Like any fun people, any particularly fun games or rounds within the tournament that were particularly memorable?
Yeah, so my first and second round were both very memorable. My first round I played Ian Gall, second round John Cedarberg. The reason why is they were playing almost to the unit the exact same list, and I played them back to back.
As you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
no, not as me. Them
Oh.
like for each other. They were both running just about the exact same list.
And both
So-
of them were fairly high on the both Ian Gall and John Cedarberg finished fairly high in the tournament as well.
Yeah, and we can get to who I fully played afterwards in a minute and where they ranked, because it's pretty interesting of how
Okay.
who I played actually ended up placing. But yeah, so in the first game, I was able to bait. They both had 4 T80s, which was the big problem because T72s only have AT21, T80s have front number 20. You're not doing anything to them from the front. They both had a lot of AA, so I've got 4 Hinds, but they got to get close. And they're not going to survive the amount of AA both of them had. So I couldn't use that. What I was able to do in the first game was bait the T80s forward and then use an ambush with stabilizers to get a 14-inch move and side shot and kill them all. And I ended up being able to repeat the same thing, but coming on from reserve in the second game.
Okay.
So my first 2 games, I killed 8 tanks that my army normally should never be able to kill.
I guess that's what the McGuffin's for.
Yeah. Those were definitely the most memorable moments. But yeah, the T72s move surprisingly fast, faster than people expect. So.
Well, at least the speed helped you out quite a bit.
Yes, it did.
And then who else did you play? You said Ian Gall and John Cedarberg.
Yeah, so I ended up playing those 2. My third game, oh shoot, I'm forgetting his name, but I'll come back to it. And then on day 2, I played Keith Gilmore. Then I played Alex Higginbotham, and then Howard West as my last one.
Okay.
Oh, and yeah, I apologize to who I played my third round. I keep forgetting your name, but the placings were great. So when we got to standings, I ended up getting 9th, which was again 1 spot off of my top half goal. So I was like, all right, not great, but pretty close to where I was aiming for.
And then compared to how you placed last year, how was that?
Yeah, so well, because this was my first Team Yankee Masters.
Okay. This was okay.
Yeah, but in my Flames ones, I had got 11th my first one, second my second one. So it was closer to my first one, but again, Team Yankee's a fairly different game than Flames is.
There's quite a bit of rule difference, yeah.
Yeah, and even for most of the rules that are the same, just because of the equipment and stats that are available, it's a very different game on a strategic level. Like you got to think very differently between the 2 games.
Yes.
But my opponents actually ended up finishing 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 8th, and 16th.
So it was John Meyer one of your opponents?
Oh, sorry. No, it was not. He got 3rd. Was he 3rd or 2nd?
He was 2nd.
2nd. It was 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 16th. Okay. Yeah, I didn't play the top 2, and I played pretty much everybody between me and them.
Sorry, that's why I was thinking, like you said, 2nd. Yeah. I'm just like, well, John got 2nd, so.
No, it was 3rd down. 3rd down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. I mean, at least you hypothetically played more challenging players than you the entire time. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good consolation prize of knowing that everyone that I played also did very well. So
you finished 9th and you were happy with your placement. What else? How did Team Yankee Masters meet your expectations? Overall, just like the gameplay, the environment.
Well, it was pretty similar to
the whole experience.
Very similar to my other 2 Masters, all of which have been great. for the most part, great opponents on all of them. There's one opponent, I think my first Masters that I had to play that was not the most fun game I've ever had, but every other game since then has always been amazing. Always great people, and good people. So you're always thinking hard, and you're always exhausted by the end of the day. They are long days, but they're very fun. I look forward to every time I get to go to them.
Okay. So Masters isn't always the easiest to get to.
No.
What would you tell somebody going to Masters their first time, or somebody that like is actively trying to get to Masters?
So I got two different answers for these two different types of people. So someone who's trying or aspiring to go to Masters, the biggest thing is play games. Playing games is the most single best way you will get good at this game. So by playing games, you will get better, because getting good takes time. And also, do not be afraid to lose, because when you lose, especially to good players or great players, that's when you're going to learn the most tactics and tips and tricks and just things that you can improve on yourself, right? So when I first started, I pretty much mostly only played tournaments just because of time restrictions, and I was still in high school when I started. So I think I went probably 9 to 10 months of starting the game where I never won a game, but I just kept playing. Every month I was doing another tournament. And eventually 2 years later, I was winning every tournament.
Mm-hmm.
It's just playing games.
And how many people play up in Canada where you're at?
So if we got everybody out in our scene right now, we'd probably have about 14 to 16 people.
Okay.
Back when V3 of Flames was like the big thing, so when I like started, we probably could have got 26 to 28.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then for anyone who's going to Masters for their first time, the biggest thing is just relax, right? Like I remember on my first Masters, I was very jittery. I was very nervous. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm here. I made it, right? In the end, it is a game. You don't need to care super hard about how you do. Like, just relax. If you relax, you will do a lot better. Just be calm. Obviously, you've played well enough to get here, so just do what you have been doing, and you will be all good.
Yeah. And then what about somebody that's just like starting out in Team Yankee and Flames of War? They're kind of like flirting with the idea, but they're just not sure.
Yeah. So obviously, try to find someone who's a player around you. Ask questions. If you have a store near you, right? Go to the store. Ask them if they know players. Most stores can usually put you in touch with players or people who run the group. And that's how I got into the game. Was I just happened to be at the store at the exact same time the guy who runs our group was in the store at the same time, and he explained the game to me. I'd planned to be in the store for probably about 15 minutes while the rest of my family was out shopping. I'm pretty sure I was in there for about an hour, and they were like, "You done yet?" But yeah, just find someone, explain the game to you, ask lots of questions, right? Like, the game at its very core is simple, but it can build up to a lot of complications really quickly. So just try to start simple, right? Like, you don't need to include the most meta units or the most synergies right off the bat, right? Like, you can start with the most simple, basic things you can, and then start growing into a bunch of different things, like in Flames command cards or in Team Yankee, bringing in lots of air and anti-aircraft and other stuff like that.
Or trying the more challenging missions.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
just start out with like a standard
free-for-all
attack, free-for-all mission, and then maybe work to like, now would be what is it, kill zone?
Killing zone I think is a tough one, or one's like gauntlet or through the wire, whatever they call it now.
Some of those that you like, you just see it and you're just like, no.
Yeah, they've made some of them pretty interesting and pretty complicated, but just start simple. It really benefits you if you just start nice and easy.
Yeah. And then I guess, so like the goal with this, I'm going to do a series of interviews congratulations, Jace, you're the first one.
Thank you.
Is to interview some of the people that have been to this year's Team Yankee Masters, and then I'll do the same thing once Flames of War Masters is over in October, November, whenever it ends up being. And I'll let Joe take care of like the top players that I know he'll want to interview for the live show. But interview some of the voices that might not be the best. You might not be necessarily brought on as an SME onto the show, but it's also really, really important to hear your voice for newer players that they're just like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. What is this? And instead of necessarily listening to somebody that's like been playing for 20 years, why don't we talk to somebody that's been playing for what, 10-ish?
Yeah, I guess Flames has been 7 to 8. Team Yankee's been about 4.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
So
I know you were close to my age. I didn't know how close to my age you were. Somebody that's a little bit newer to the game, where it kind of just shows you it's not a hard game. It's a very possible game. You just have to manage learning curve.
Exactly.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, there's really not much to the game once you get down to the basics. It's fairly simple.
All right. Thank you for coming on and having a chat with me. Is there anything else you would like to say before we close out?
No, I don't think there's anything else I have. Thanks everyone who ends up watching, and hope you all have a good rest of your day.